Hi, there's been some questions about looping, and I just made up a short program with the three main types of looping, which is the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. The main difference, well, they all have three elements in common. First of all, you have to set the value you're incrementing to or changing to a known value. You have to test for when to continue the loop. When it is true, the condition is true, and then you also have to show how you're changing the variable that determines how long you keep on looping. So I have here a program, and just showing the methods for looping in a program, and it talks a little bit about it. And any loop must be initialized. This is part A. It must test to see if the loop is to continue, which is part B, and it must have something to change the value that is being tested, which is part C. So we'll go ahead and do it. Standard program, class is looping, name's public static void main, and then I'm going to be creating a variable to use for the while and do while loops, and I'm going to also be setting an end value, which is just int end loop, which is 10. So I'm just going to go through the loop each time 10 times. First one I'm going to do is the for loop, which will loop through the loop until I is less than end loop. So it should be going from 0 to 9, which will be printing out 10 items. If you notice the for loop, it starts with initialization, which is part A. It has the check to see when to continue, and if this is false, it will end, and then also what to do about the item that needs to be incremented, and this is just going to increment it by 1. Then I'm going to go through it and print it out, and print out this count is, and I'm just going to print out I. That's the for loop. Then it says, please notice where it ends, and where do you think it's going to end compared to end loop? If end loop is 10, which it is, it's going to be ending at 9, or is it going to get 10? The while loop is the second loop, and the test is done at the beginning of the loop. I'm setting this counter to 0 so that I can initialize the variable. And then the while loop, inside the while loop is always the end of loop check. And here, as long as counter is less than end loop, I'm going to continue it, and I'm just going to print out. And notice then the counter, it's printed and then incremented by 1. Then again, notice how many loops are done, and just do you think it's going to be ending at 9 or 10? Then the do while loop, the difference between the while loop and the do while loop is, if you notice, the while loop does the check at the beginning of the loop, which means if the loop is false, it's not going to execute at all. Whereas if the do while loop, the check is done at the end, and it's just like a while loop, but its check is done at the end instead of the beginning. And so it'll go through the loop at least once. And then you notice this check is here. So we're just going to go through from 0 until counter is less than 10. And then please notice on this does it print out a 10 or not? But to show you the difference between a while loop and a do while loop, I am setting counter to 0. And then I am checking as long as counter is less than counter. I'm going to do the loop, and notice counter is not less than counter to begin with, so it's going to skip over this statement, whereas on a do while loop, it's going to print this statement once and then check, and it's already false, so that's not going to go through it a second time. That's the main difference between a while loop and a do while loop. Then I can go ahead and build it. Then I'm going to run it. And then notice in all three cases, the for loop does 0 through 9, the while loop does 0 through 9, and the do while loop does 0 through 9. However, if I do remember on the last part, I did do the while loop, and then notice whether the while loop prints a line, and it does not, because the check was already false, so it does not go through it once, whereas a do while loop prints the line because the check is not made until the end of the file. If there are any questions, please go ahead and contact me. I hope this is helpful.